Manchester United have a second bid rejected for Patrick Dorgu. Man United have made inquiries about Christopher Nkunku as talks emerge of a possible swap with Garnacho. Antony leaves on loan, and United are trying to hijack Heaven from Arsenal. All this plus more in today's video as we run through all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with... Let's go through the Dorgu news. Obviously, the news brought you yesterday was regarding Manchester United making another bid for Patrick Dorgu that has now been rejected, apparently, by Lecce. So Manchester United's second approach for Patrick Dorgu is not enough to get the deal done so far. Lecce are insisting on a £34 million package, or Dorgu won't be allowed to leave in January. Manchester United and Lecce have a €5 million gulf in valuation over Patrick Dorgu. Following United's second offer, there is optimism a deal can be reached. More club-to-club talks are planned over the weekend. That came from Ben Jacobs. The Gazzetta from Italy have actually been quite decent recently with the kind of news coming out of Italy. Normally they're not the ones I always say to take with a pinch of salt, but they've actually been fairly accurate, saying that Patrick Dorgu is Ruben Amorim's top target. Lecce are insisting on €40 million or nothing for Patrick Dorgu because they believe more clubs will be interested in the summer. And again, that came later on from Fabrizio Romano. And he also said that United have spent all day working with Lecce on the Dorgu deal. No agreement. Lecce want €40 million or nothing because they believe more clubs will be interested in the summer. First offer of $27 million was rejected. Second offer of $34 million was also rejected. That's euros as well. So second offer rejected by Lecce. They're holding firm on their valuation, which is €40 million. United have offered 34, so there's like a €5-6 million gap in valuation. I think that gap can be kind of bridged, with some add-ons and, increasing it slightly. But the issue is, I think with this one, right, we've left ourselves in a position where we are weak and vulnerable when it comes to left-backs because we have none. So every club we try to buy a left-back from are going to drive a hard bargain because they know full well that we're desperate and we can't really, walk away entirely, because if we did, we're running out of options. It's late in the January transfer window, for example, so they know we're running out of time. Plus, teams know we haven't got any money, and plus, teams know we haven't got any left-backs at the moment as well. So everything, we are in a massive position of weakness, I think, when it comes specifically to the left-back position, and in this case, obviously, Patrick Dorgu, because Lecce are in a relegation fight. They want to keep the player, and like they're saying, from their perspective, they think there's going to be more interest in the summer, so they want a summer value for the player in January. Which, it is what it is. It's just, you all have probably mixed opinions on this. I have mixed opinions on this as well when it comes to it, because, again, I don't want us to overpay for players just for the sake of overpaying for players. But then we're not really talking about a stupid fee. Like with Branthwaite, for example, right? We offered 50 and Everton were like, no, we want 80. That's a ridiculous gap to try to bridge. But if you're talking a couple million euros to go for who apparently at the club, this is our first choice, or this is our number one target, or this is the guy that Amorim selected, or that the club or whoever have kind of thought is going to be the one. And you've got to remember, he's 20 years old. So potentially it's a £30 million investment on somebody that could be your left back, for the next 10 years if he does really well because of his age and stuff. He's not going to be on a massive wage neither. So, I kind of just think we're in a position where we've shot ourselves in the foot by being inept in in previous transfer windows and not addressing this issue in the summer when it was a massive issue. Maybe not even addressing it properly last summer as well, when we spent money on Onana and Mount and players like that we didn't necessarily really need at that time. But, Malacia was injured. Luke Shaw, we knew, had injury problems. So it's a massive kind of, we've done it to ourselves, basically. So we might have to pay a couple million more, which it is what it is. Again, you will have mixed opinions on that personally. If it's a couple of £1 million, I'm not really that bothered about it. If it was like a 20 million gap in valuation and we were going to massively overpay like that, then yeah, I think we should be walking away. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, just on that though, because Some of you would say that that's like the Man United tax and stuff, and it is absolutely right. It is, and Lecce are a team where this is their kind of cash cow. This could kind of do a lot for their future, selling a player like Dorgu, so they do want to get the best bang for their buck. But Romano's got some historic tweets that I found from September and October when Chelsea and Tottenham respectively were both kind of looking at Patrick Dorgu. And Lecce's stance was exactly the same then. So in the September one, understand Tottenham and Lecce, fullback Patrick Dorgu is on the shortlist for the summer. Chelsea are considering a move. Talks didn't advance. Lecce wanted more than 30 or 35 million euros for Dorgu. Wanted more than the 30 or 35 million for Dorgu, so they've kind of done the same with Tottenham, done the same with Chelsea, and again in the October tweet at the bottom, exactly the same thing. Lecce have asked the £40 million fee, so Lecce have always kind of had that 40 million valuation in their minds for Patrick Dorgu, and it might be a case we need to get there. Whether we would get there by offering some add-ons or not, who knows? But apparently talks are still going to be ongoing this weekend. We'll need to keep an eye on it, and I'll bring you any updates. But let me know in the comments how you feel about that kind of situation, because I'm sure there'll be some of you that would say, look, just walk away and go for somebody else. Alvaro Fernandez, for example, stands to mind because his release clause is £16 million or 18 million euros. It's obviously way cheaper, but if you're bidding for, it's clear indication that we don't want Alvaro, because if we've got the money, if it was a case about money, then we would obviously go for Alvaro, but it can't be. It must be something to do with their, their profile, their play style. There must be something in it, because why would we not be going for Alvaro when we're offering more for Dorgu? It's got to be something else rather than financially. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, another player that we've been linked with yesterday was Ayden Heaven. So Manchester United want to hijack Ayden Heaven from Arsenal. They believe he is a top player for the future. That came from Fabrizio Romano. Fabrizio Romano also confirmed the story I brought to you yesterday that he was at Old Trafford for the Rangers game as well, saying that he was there. And then he also went on to say to kind of quote about Mikel Arteta didn't comment on his approach by Manchester United in his press conference. He said, I can't talk about individuals. Arsenal aware of Manchester United. I can't talk about individuals. And Romano also said Arsenal are aware of Manchester United leading the race to sign Heaven despite new contract proposals sent. So this could be one where we could be on the verge of poaching another one of Arsenal's very highly regarded young players. It might be similar to the Tudor we might have one where he sees a better pathway to the first team at United than he does at Arsenal, because, Arteta doesn't really promote any of the youth players, whereas obviously United have a history and a tradition of that. And I do think Amram would do it if you're good enough. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through the Nkunku and Garnacho news. So, Manchester United have asked to be kept informed of developments regarding Christopher Nkunku's future, while Chelsea continue to weigh up a formal move for Alejandro Garnacho. Now, that came out originally from Rob Dawson at ESPN, who is a decent source, but can be a bit of a shit stirrer sometimes. Sky also kind of collaborated the story, saying that Christopher Nkunku is a potential Manchester United target in this window. Talks have been held between intermediaries about a move. Chelsea do not want to sell him, but would be tempted to do business for £70 million. United are unlikely to pay that, and rightly so. We should not be paying £70 million for Christopher Nkunku. Florian Plettenberg has said that Manchester United have now seriously entered a race for Christopher Nkunku. United are in direct contact with Chelsea. And then we've had talks of a potential swap deal, because we know Garnacho and Chelsea were interested in Garnacho. Talked yesterday about them making a £60 million bid or preparing a formal offer for him, which we'll run through in a second. Manchester United and Chelsea are considering a swap between Alejandro Garnacho and Christopher Nkunku. There is no final decision on this yet, but this swap is an idea that has been discussed. Fabrizio Romano, though, came out saying that Manchester United and Chelsea had initial talks about potential separate deals for Nkunku and Garnacho at the end of December. As Rob Dawson reported today, it could still be an idea for the two clubs, but not concrete, close, or advanced at this stage. So Romano kind of confirming. So what Romano was saying, and Romano's the most credible out of all of those sources. was effectively saying that at the end of December there were talks about potential swap deals with Chelsea involving Garnacho, but that's nothing materialized from those. So whether Sky and Rob Dawson have now got wind of that kind of news, or Pru and Plettenberg, and they're now putting the kind of reports out there, who knows what's actually kind of going on there. But I do believe Romano when it comes to this, and he's saying that there was nothing in those kind of reports, or we're not interested in a swap as it stands at the moment. Whether we will or we won't, who knows? But that would be an absolutely horrific deal for Manchester United to do, in my opinion. And Nkunku is 7 years older, has a way worse injury record than Alejandro Garnacho, and is on more than double his wages. There is no situation where Manchester United come out on the winning end of that particular swap. It would be an absolute disgrace to swap Garnacho and buy Nkunku for those reasons. 7 years older, he's on around 190 grand a week. Garnacho's on 50 grand a week at United. His injury record is horrific for Chelsea as well. You know, Garnacho's is actually fairly good. He's had injuries, but it's nowhere near as bad as that. I mean, last season, look at those statistics: 20 games for the knee injury, then another 9 for fitness, 5 for a hip injury, 14 for a hamstring injury. To his credit, he's not been injured this season, but there was a red flag all over that. And I go all the way back to the 22-23 one when he's got the torn knee ligament injury for RB Leipzig. Missed 12 games, and then if you look since, because before then he had a really good injury record, had a really bad knee injury, and then since then you can see the kind of escalation of the injuries that he's had last season. There is no way that we come off any good in this situation at all. And then to rub salt into the wounds, they want to pay £60 million for Garnacho, but want 70 million for Nkunku. Yeah, I would throw that offer straight in the bin, but you know, we'll keep an eye on it for you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, we'll go through the Garnacho news in a second, but first, we did have a here we go yesterday. So Real Betis are paying... 2 seconds. So here we go. Antony will travel to Seville tonight in order to join Real Betis from Man United. Green light after documents approved. Loan move until June with no buyback clause. The salary is shared. So Antony's going to do his medical and everything like that is going to be going to Real Betis on loan. I just showed the slide there. Real Betis are playing a minimum of 84% of Antony's salary plus potential bonuses depending on performances. Estimated 1.5 million will be trimmed off Man United's wage bill for the rest of the campaign. So that came from Laurie Whitwell. So Antony has gone out on loan. That's all been... It's weird that he was in the matchday squad ahead of Rashford as well. You know, there's a kind of tell of the kind of what Amorim thinks about the squad, in my opinion. The fact that he and the reports are that he would only sanction Antony's leaving if he knows he's going to be getting a replacement, because, you know, Antony's not very good, but he is a body and he is someone off the bench and he can kind of, you know, have an impact on a game, or he can, you know, he can run around anyway when he comes on, like at the end of a game, or he's an option off the bench. And I don't think Amorim would sanction him kind of going unless he had assurances that somebody else was coming in, which is, you know, it is what it is. Odd time to do it, though, ahead of the Fulham game. But, you know, at least he's kind of gone. That's the main thing, because hopefully with that deal, he goes away, has a good loan, you know, and then either we can increase his value to look to sell him in the summer, or if he doesn't, I think it will be a loan again next season with maybe an option or an obligation to buy because of a monetization and PSR rules. I think unless I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that unless we get an offer higher than £30 million for Antony in the summer, it's going to go down as a loss for PSR because of a monetization, the way it works over his contract. I'm pretty sure that's the kind of figures that I was reading, which means if he does really well, we need an offer above 30 million to accept it in the summer, or if we don't, they'll probably just send him out on loan with an option to buy, because the following season it doesn't matter because that's past the 3-year mark for PSR rules. Very complicated, but either way, wish him all the best. Let's hope he goes there and absolutely smashes it, and then we can finally be rid of him in the summer. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, let's finally go through all the Garnacho news. So, Chelsea have presented a formal offer to Manchester United for Alejandro Garnacho. Now, that came from a South American outlet with, like, you know, over 1 million followers. So I'm going to assume that they're fairly credible, suggesting that Chelsea have presented a formal offer to Manchester United for Alejandro Garnacho. Alejandro Garnacho will be able to leave Manchester United if the club receives an offer of £60 million from Chelsea or any other suitor. Now, that came from Paul Hurst in the Times, who's a good source. And then Manchester United expect Chelsea to submit an official bid for Alejandro Garnacho any moment. That came from Fabrizio Romano. So it's looking, you know, it's looking like potentially Chelsea are coming back in for Alejandro Garnacho. There was, though, a story regarding Napoli, where Fabrizio Romano said Napoli are still keeping an eye on Alejandro Garnacho, and Dimarzio said Napoli are still interested in Alejandro Garnacho. The contacts are ongoing to convince Manchester United to lower their demands. Karim Adeyemi does not want to leave Borussia Dortmund until the summer. So, you know, Romano and Dimarzio both kind of suggesting that maybe Napoli are still in the race, because Napoli have made an offer. We've rejected it. They've then tried to go and get Adeyemi from Borussia Dortmund. Adeyemi, by all accounts, does not want to leave Borussia Dortmund. So they may then come back in for Garnacho. Yeah. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'm still of the opinion we shouldn't be selling Alejandro Garnacho. I would be, you know, I've come to terms with maybe the idea of him going to Napoli, but I would still want, you know, way more than what they've currently offered for Garnacho, which is about £40 million. But I've maybe come to terms with that because, as I mentioned yesterday, it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to see it. I don't need to watch him on Match of the Day. I can ignore and pretend it didn't happen. Right? Whereas if he goes to Chelsea, it's going to be all over the news. It's going to be in the media. It'll be on Match of the Day. I'll have to it'll be in our faces all the time. And I don't like the idea of that. It's going to absolutely suck if that happens. So hopefully Napoli come in. If we are going to sell him, hopefully Napoli come in and pull their finger out and increase their bid. But overall, I think we still should be potentially keeping Garnacho anyway. But yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.